Has it started your side? Can you see? You should get a little pop-up.
No, there was no pop-up yet.
Oh.
Oh, okay, now it shows.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. Okay. So, yeah, Torstan, I think, how about this for a start to tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, and then we can get stuck into what we've been chatting about all week.
Yeah.
And I like to think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
Like really, everything you've said to me really struck a chord. So yeah, let's talk about love your nuts and take it from there.
So I introduce myself in a way if somebody's listening now.
Yeah, sure.
The newsletter, okay.
Or just like you're introducing yourself to me.
Yeah, okay. My name is Torstan. I was diagnosed with testicular cancer in 1995 when I was 30 years old. Being a teacher during that time in Namibia, I grew up in Namibia, and typical male, didn't go to the doctor immediately. I read it actually in a children's book. I was preparing lessons for sex education for the primary school, for the German school. And because I've studied in English and Afrikaans, although my mother tongue is German, but I didn't have the terminology for the little ones to talk about sex education. In German. So I bought a children's book in Germany and was lying in bed in the evening reading this children's book just to pick up the right words that the kids use, that they understand what I'm going to tell them. And there was a chapter on all the diseases with a little paragraph that said testicular cancer is most common between 15 and 40. And while lying in bed reading this, I checked my nuts and I felt a little lump, not bigger than the tip of my small finger. And then I thought, well, maybe it was always there because it was not painful. Just because you read it now, it's not cancer. Typical male, finding 1,000 reasons not to go to the doctor.
Not to go to the doctor, right.
Yeah. And then it was like 14 days later, because it bothered me. And I thought, I just have to go and, for peace of mind, I have to go and let it checked. And then it was testicular cancer. So I always say I've read it in a children's book. That's how I found out about my cancer.
But unfortunately, it's not a fairy tale.
Yeah. So it was surgery, and then that I think that normal things during that time, because it was in 1995, surgery. Then you had to go for chemotherapy, and I didn't had any information on testicular cancer. Although I've studied biology, I never heard of it before. And there was not much information in Windhoek available at the Cancer Association, internet was not available. It was 95. It was not that everybody had internet, and there were support groups like you find today on Facebook and everywhere. So, and then I had chemotherapy, and there was a 12-year-old who had testicular cancer as well. And when I was back at school after my treatment, I decided I have to warn the kids at school, the boys at school. I thought all the boys that pass me on the corridor every day, they all love their nuts because that's what men do. But they don't know that they should check them once a month. So every year when I had a new class group in biology, one lesson was on testicular cancer, not testicular cancer only. I included breast cancer as well because girls were sitting in class as well, just to make everybody comfy. So in a cheeky way, I spoke to them. I always say to them, okay, no books out today. We're going to talk boobs and balls. And then I said to them, both these cancers is self-examination. Both these cancers, you search for lumps. Both these cancers, if you detect them early, you've got a good chance to survive.
Absolutely.
And then I shared my story, and that I did that every year when I got a new class group. So I stopped teaching 2005. In 2006, a former student invited me for coffee. And he said to me, because you made us aware, I went to the doctor in time. I'm 16, I've got testicular cancer, and you saved my life. And he's actually the reason why I've started then the foundation, because I realized just because I'm open about what happened to me, I actually save lives. And men find it embarrassing to talk about these topics, but there's actually nothing embarrassing about. And I like to be a leading example of I'm an example. If you detect it early, you've got a good chance to survive, because I've survived it because it was in an early stage.
And I couldn't agree more with you. It's like can we please start talking about body parts? Not only in this context, but I have a 10-year-old daughter, you know, can we please start talking about body parts in just a normal fashion?
Yeah.
You know, I read that article that I sent you this morning about Lance Armstrong, and he blames a whole bunch of things on his testicular cancer. But the one thing that really struck me, and I'm going to read a paragraph and then we can jump into this. It involves a region of the anatomy that is so private and sacred that most men feel uncomfortable inspecting themselves there or even entertaining the thought that something might be wrong. Armstrong, for example, said publicly that he believes he had one enlarged testicle ever since I can remember. But until the enlargement became painful, he didn't give it a second thought.
Yeah, I think it's in a way it's true. Look, I've detected it early. It was a little lump.
Yeah.
So because I read it, if that lump would have gone bigger and bigger, I would most probably ignore it as well and say, okay, now the one testicle is a little bit bigger. I would most probably go when it starts being painful. And then it's often the stage in an advanced stage that it starts spreading already, because then that little thing opens up and cells move into the body and spread via the blood system and lymph nodes and kind of thing. So I would have ignored it most probably as well. But the funny thing is about men is we make jokes about it below the belt. And all kinds of jokes.
Yeah.
And if it comes to a serious thing, if it's about health, then we don't talk about it. So you will most probably find thousands of jokes about two testicles where the one is bigger than the other, and it's funny kind of thing. But in a cancer case, they don't go to the doctor because they say, you must feel it's not normal. So it's not a joke, go to the doctor. But I think that is,
yeah, and it's so I have obviously when was Testicular Cancer Month? It was a little bit earlier this year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's in April. April is testicular.
April. And obviously Zebra was doing a bunch of awareness stuff around that, and I think Jean was talking to you. And I was also reading, and you know, I have a dear friend here with a 13-year-old son, and I was like, I won't mention names, but you really need to talk to him about this because I didn't realize it's something that this is the age and stage that you really need to have the conversation. She was like, absolutely, they have a fabulous relationship, super close, can talk about anything and everything. And you know, he just wouldn't engage on this topic, and she was quite distressed by it because, hey, I thought we spoke about everything. And he was like, Mom, we are not talking about my balls.
Yeah.
Interesting that, you know, that some, and this is the culture we live in, like some things are taboo, some things you can talk about, and then some things we just don't. And it's a, I mean, I really do get the psychology behind it, but you know, Torstan, it's, to my mind, it's about having these conversations. And you had the perfect podium in a sense because you were talking to kids of that age. I mean, how do we go about, in your mind, how do we go about best creating this awareness? Is it just about normalizing the conversation, or there has to be more to it?
Yeah, I think because, I think awareness is definitely actually the only way to go, because otherwise you just have to make them aware. I often say, if I could reach every boy, every 11-year-old boy on the planet with my campaign and tell him he has to check his balls once a month, the majority will, because they're scared. Something's going to happen there. That's the crown jewels, the I've got balls kind of thing, the manly thing, and nothing should happen to them.
We are pre-programmed to protect those parts.
Yeah. So they will not talk about it easily, but they will definitely check it if they know about it. But they don't check because they don't know about it, because nobody's talking about these things. It's a vicious cycle actually. And I think the best is actually to do it at school level, because first of all, these boys are at risk. I met the 12-year-old one. They are at risk. It's not a cancer because often cancer is seen as older people get cancer. It's not. Anybody can get cancer. Even a baby can get cancer. So people always think it's old people getting cancer, and it's not. So and testicular cancer is most common between 15 and 45, more or less. And it's because sperm production is the highest during that time. And it's actually cancer cells that are sperm cells that go mad and turn into cancer cells. That's why it's the highest in that age group, because sperm production is the highest in that age group.
Yeah.
So that would be the right age to tell these boys that they have to check once a month.
Yeah.
The difficult part is,
are school systems ready for that? I mean, I know what my 10-year-old is learning, but I don't know if that's a conversation that our school system is ready for. What do you think?
Yeah, it's difficult. If I go to school management and ask them, I like to speak to your kids in the school hall, all of them together, sharing my story, what happened to me, just to make them aware. Then they're not against it. They would love to have me there, but they sometimes a little bit hesitant because they don't know how some of the parents will react. Because the school is a society, is a community, and in that community you get from very conservative parents to very liberal parents. So you get the whole spectrum there. So if the school brings somebody in with a campaign called Love Your Nuts, and that guy talks about the testicles, there will be parents that will be up in arms and knocking on the headmaster's door and say, what's happening here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's a lot of parents, they think, thank goodness somebody is doing that, then I don't have to talk to my boy about this.
Yes, there's an angle.
Yeah.
And delivering the message in a responsible manner.
Yeah. And when I give talks at corporates or at clubs or sport clubs or golf days or whatever, then I always, because it's just adults sitting there, and then I always say to them, you all got kids at school somewhere.
Yeah.
You as a parent, if you think it's good what I'm talking about, what I'm doing, please go to your school and ask school management to invite me. Then it's easier, because then school management can say, it's a wish of the parents. The parents came up with the idea. That's why we invited. That makes it easier. So if parents go to the school and ask the school to invite somebody like me or another cancer charity to raise awareness, then it's easier.
Yes.
And then nobody can say, well, that school manager, what have you decided? And then it's easy to say, well, it was the parents asked for that. And that makes it easier, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I think definitely if it comes to awareness, would be great if it would be part of the syllabi on the planet in every school. But it's very difficult to get into schools in general because it's because everybody likes to get into schools. It's not only the cancer charities. There is the lifestyle things, addiction, a lot of things where there are charities that would love to talk to the kids, and schools have a syllabi that, and I was a teacher, I know, because if you have to, if the kids have to leave your class every now and then for your period that you actually need them for, in my case, biology, and they have to listen to a very serious topic, nothing against it, but you have to finish a certain syllabi during that year. So that's why schools can't actually take all of them. And if we approach government, which we do, because there is a subject like life orientation where this could be included, but everybody likes to get into that syllabi as well. So it's, and if you once you're in there, it's going to take ages to really, till it's implemented, till it's part of the school book kind of thing. But I'm connected via the Cancer Alliance, which is the umbrella organization in South Africa. We connected to the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education, and we slowly, hopefully, getting our foot into the door that we at least can get it to the schools, and as an optional that teachers say, well, this is interesting, I'm going to tell the kids about it.
I'm just sitting here thinking as a parent, I mean, of course, I have a daughter, but I don't know where I sit on the spectrum. I dare not, I'm not going to go there, but it's definitely a conversation that I'd have with my daughter, because it comes down to we're all responsible for each other's health to a certain extent. Okay, the very least you should know what's going on. She's got little boy buddies, and okay, they're all of 10 years old, but you know, and I'm just thinking, so what where does the parental responsibility sit in all of this? Shouldn't we be doing more?
Yeah, often corporate world, they ask me, are ladies allowed at the talk, or is it a men's health kind of thing, for men only talk kind of thing? I get these questions. I say, no, please, the ladies should be there as well, because all of them, or not all of them, but a lot of them, they've got a boy that could be 12-year-old. And if the boy,
partners.
a partner's in, but children especially, young children, they spend more time with the mum than the dad normally. Because dad is at work, mum is at home, taking them to sport in the afternoon or whatever. And if there's a boy who feels there's a change and he's got the courage to tell his mum and say, Mum, I've got a pain there, that she doesn't ignore it and say, oh, well, let's get painkillers, it's fine. That she knows it could be testicular cancer. Absolutely. So that's why girls or ladies should know this as well. And like you say, they all got a partner or a boyfriend or a brother. Or what I've got is like a goodie bag that I take to the schools so that the kids can take home. And I've got a stress ball that is actually, it is a stress ball in the shape of a heart. But I've got the Love Your Nuts.
Oh, they're talking, come on, the shape of a heart.
But the heart, I've got the Love Your Nuts logo printed on the upside down on the heart, that it looks like balls.
Oh, smart. Okay, hassle.
So that is part of that goodie bag. And I always tell the kids and say, if your dad stresses, please give this to him. Because if the boys are like 12, 13, 14 years old, their dads are most probably still in that range that they can get testicular cancer. They could be 35, 40. So that is the way, my way to get the message home and hopefully reach the parents that I can't reach at school, kind of thing.
Yes.
I love it. It's about awareness, definitely.
It's about the awareness. It has to be. And I mean, goodness, I mean, I'm in, oncology is my business. I'd like to think I know, a little bit about most cancers. And this was one that I was just, there's so many layers to it from a psychological perspective. That I was just like fascinated. Like I said, there's this whole like a very primal psychological castration anxiety that's linked to these body parts of ours that we require to procreate. Hey, that's what we're here on Earth to do. Survival of the species.
Yeah, it's true. And that's actually where the next generation is developing in these body parts, or prepared for the next generation. And we don't talk about these body parts, but we like to produce a next generation. So it's actually doesn't make sense. It's so important for us, but we ignore it.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. It's absolutely, I agree completely. And so maybe then if I can go back, gosh, I knew this was going to happen. We'd be chatting and chatting, but because it's important and yet fascinating. Tell me about the pregnancy test. I just like, how is that connected? Please. Did not know about that.
Yeah. So if a guy uses a pregnancy test and it shows the test shows positive, meaning the guy is pregnant, it's an indication that there could be testicular cancer. It's not 100% sure, but it's an indication. And how it works is a pregnancy test actually works on the hormone system. Yes. So if a woman falls pregnant, then the whole hormone system changes, and the pregnancy test picks up the hormones that are very dominant during pregnancy.
Yes. Okay.
So that's how it's tested. So if these hormones show, then she is pregnant, because they're dominant at that time, only during pregnancy. So testicular cancer, because it's sperm cells and they turn into cancer cells, they behave like an embryo. So they simulate actually, it's actually like an embryo. They even form a little body kind of thing. So it's even developed.
And it kind of makes the same hormonal changes in the man as what would happen to a woman if she was pregnant.
Yeah. So we all, male and female, we've got male and female hormones, both
Yes.
sides.
X and Y.
So
Yes.
because that develops, that sperm cell that turns into cancer cell that behaves like an embryo, got all the properties like an embryo. So the body reacts to that. It's a pregnancy, and it develops these hormones. That's why the pregnancy test was
And
so positive. But it's not 100% sure. It could be other reasons as well, like um, it was an injury and it's recovering, so the hormone system gets shaken up because testosterone is developed in the testicles. So, but it's an indication. So if the pregnancy test shows positive, it's the best thing for that guy to go immediately to the doctor because it's an indication for testicular cancer. Yeah, it's weird. I always use that example if I give talks and they like, what?
No, yeah.
And I bet you a lot of them go home and uses the wife's pregnancy test just to check, which is a good thing that they should do.
The first time someone's partner has gone, honey, please stock up on the pregnancy test.
Yeah. I need one once a month.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it is really encouraging because it's basically if you get the diagnosis early enough, it's manageable. It's a manageable disease.
Yeah, the testicle cancer is a very aggressive cancer, so it grows very quickly because it's a sperm cell and it's got the properties like an embryo. And if you think about an embryo from not visible, in 9 months, it's a baby of 3 kilograms. So testicular cancer, it's got that property to grow very quickly. Obviously, it's not going to stay at one place. It's going to spread into your body. But because it grows so quickly, the chemotherapy that they've got for testicular cancer is very, very good. So it's a very aggressive cancer, but it's a very curable cancer as well. So most men are diagnosed in an early stage when it's still in the testicle. They feel that lump, and the testicle is removed. The one where the cancer is, it's very seldom that's in both testicles at the same time. It happens that a guy has it in both testicles, but it's often years apart. So I haven't heard of a case where it was in both testicles at the same time. But I know cases they had testicular cancer twice, but there was years in between, sometimes 6-7 years in between. And that is often family history of cancer that it reoccurs.
Okay, so there's a hereditary element to this that's important to know too.
Yeah. So no, I lost it. Where were we? The chemotherapy and treatable. So if it's detected early, they remove the one testicle, and then depends on the stage of the cancer, you get chemotherapy. When I had way back, everybody got chemotherapy at least 2 times. And during that time, it was like this. They checked your tumor marker in your blood. And if there was no tumor marker, you get 2 sessions of chemotherapy. So somebody who's got a tumor marker, he's going to get chemotherapy. And if after the first chemotherapy, the tumor marker is gone, then he gets another 2. So it's always, if there's no tumor marker anymore, then you get on top of that 2 sessions of chemo just to make sure. So in my case, there were no tumor markers. It was in very early stage, so I only got 2 sessions of chemotherapy. Today, they not immediately go for chemotherapy because it's very aggressive and it really damages the body and it takes a long time to recover. So if they can skip chemotherapy, it's obviously a good thing. Today, they often monitor for a while, but they give the guys the options and say, well, we can monitor for a while and see if it grows, and then we go for chemotherapy, or depends on the stage of the cancer. If it's spread already, then it's actually no other way than chemotherapy. So I met a guy here in Cape Town and he was a fitness trainer, so fit like mad, and he ignored it, and he had it went into his body, and below his kidneys he had a cancer the shape of 2 tennis balls size. It was grown there. And he got chemotherapy and it's gone. So it's very aggressive, but it's very treatable. If you take Lance Armstrong, he had it in his brain and he was vomiting blood already, and they cured him. So it's a very curable cancer. But if you don't go, normally guys, if you don't go and you don't get treatment, normally these guys are gone within a year because it's very, very aggressive. It spreads very quickly.
So I have a question as a woman, I guess, but I'm sure men will have the same question. How does it, like, you go through, obviously, the diagnostics, you go through the chemo. I mean, what's the advice around if you're trying to have a family at the same time, or during this process, or I mean, how do you manage that?
Chemotherapy can make infertile.
Yeah.
So guys have to go for sperm banking before the time.
So you go. Okay.
In my talks, I always mention that as well. And in my book, there's even the whole chapter about going for sperm banking. I think the chapter I've called it "Putting My Kids on Ice."
You're funny.
Because chemotherapy can make you infertile, and normally the sperm production stops during chemotherapy.
Okay.
Chemotherapy works actually; it's very aggressive, or cells in the body, any body cells that is very active, like our hair, that grows very quickly.
Yes.
It needs a lot of energy and oxygen to grow very quickly. And if you get chemotherapy, it's poison for the body. So the hair cells, they take off this poison as well, and then they don't function. That's why the hair falls out. And the same with sperms. Sperm production is very high production every day. So that normally stops during chemotherapy. And they don't recommend fathering or going for hopefully be a father during that time, not at all.
So it's something you have to think about prior to undergoing the chemo.
Yeah, or if it happens, then rather wait. I think they said rather wait a year because you had chemotherapy, that all the toxins and everything, that your body is healthy again and everything, just to make sure. Okay. And I went a year later just to check the sperm quantity again and quality, and it was back to normal. So I would recommend that guys wait and rather get it checked again. And if it's fine, if the sperm count is normal, then why not?
So excuse the pun, but all things going swimmingly, it should be okay in about a year or two.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I think a year is fine, but don't have to wait longer than that. And guys often ask me that as well. If it comes to sex, does it still work because you lost
of course.
one testicle? And I always
anxiety,
Well, I make a lot of jokes about this, and I always say to them, a pistol only needs one magazine to shoot, so one testicle is fine. So that luckily that's why they can, if you've got cancer in the one testicle, that's why they can remove it immediately, because we've got a second one that can take over these functions, because they both produce testosterone, they both reduce sperm cells, so we don't actually need to. So
it's still okay.
It's fine to remove the one, but it's good to have sperm banking before the time, just in case the sperm production doesn't start again after chemotherapy, because that can happen. That's why they recommend sperm production, sperm banking.
Sorry.
But in general, I haven't heard of a guy who where it didn't come back afterwards. So I don't know, and I'm connected to I think like 300 guys at least that had testicular cancer around the world somewhere.
So can I ask a question? Do you think that it's easier for a guy to send you an email or give you a call as opposed to a doctor or maybe even his partner? I'm just trying to imagine the journey, the thought process, and it struck me that maybe it is easier because you've been through it and you can really give them the honest truth.
Yeah, I think you're right. If I check the emails that I get, that guys that contact me via my website, these emails normally come in at night between, I say, 11 and 3 o'clock. So I often think they played with their balls, they felt something, were scared, and then they Google lumps on the testicles, and then they come across my website or testicular cancer, and then they pop me an email. And if you read these emails between the line, it's fear and say, what should I do? What? And on social media as well, they contact me direct on social media, and there were even guys that say to me or wrote me and say, well, you had it, can you check it? And then I would go to the doctor. I said, I'm not going to check it because I'm not a medical doctor. I can't tell you if it's cancer or not, because a swelling doesn't mean, or lump doesn't mean cancer. It could be a swelling because of an infection or anything. So I'm not a medical doctor, but it shows you a little bit of this. He knows how it feels. And before I
Yes.
go to the doctor and make a fool out of me,
Yes.
I rather ask somebody who's been
Yes.
there. And obviously, I don't do these things. And I say the best thing is to go to your doctor, to your GP. You don't have to go to a specialist immediately. Go to your GP. He will refer you to a specialist. And I always say to them as well, please go to the GP first, because if you go to the specialist first, your medical aid most probably won't pay because you skipped your GP. Because who are you to decide to go to the specialist? Or even if you go to your GP and say, please refer me to a specialist, but go via your GP. And that's what I recommend all the guys. That's also the right way to go, or the
right way to do it.
Yeah, right way to do it. Yeah.
I
think you're right. It's maybe because I'm very open about this that they think, well, I'm going to ask this guy, because the stuff that I post on social media is very, very open, and maybe these guys have read my book, and my book is very open. It's my feelings on paper, so that they feel, well, I can ask this guy. It feels like I know him, because they read my story.
While we're on that, please give me the name of your book so I can also make mention of that.
Yeah, the book is called Love Your Nuts.
Of course it is.
Yeah, Love Your Nuts. The book is called Love Your Nuts, Testicle Cancer Touched My Life, and the charity, which I started later because the book was published first. And that's why I call the charity Love Your Nuts as well. And the charity is Love Your Nuts, Testicle Cancer Education in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah, I've written the book in German because way back when I had it in 95, I didn't find any other guy to talk to in Namibia. I couldn't find any other testicle cancer survivor to talk to. And there was not social media that you can put the message out there and say, help, can somebody please chat to me?
Exactly.
So it was a lonely and dark journey, and writing became my therapy. I've written letters, so it was not emails, it was still letters that I wrote to a friend in Germany, how I feel. And there I realized if I write these things down, it's like laying them off, then they're on paper, then they're not in my heart anymore, and they don't bother me anymore that much. And because I turned into a very depressed person after the cancer, the first year I had it in August 95. And 96, I was still teaching, but I turned into a very depressed person during that time. It was the constant fear that cancer returns. So if I had any ache in the body, in the knee or something, that, oh, this cancer, I have to go to the doctor. So it drove me mad, that fear that cancer returns. And I think it comes from when I went for chemotherapy. So you see all these other people, all these other cancer patients who get treatment, and that in a way, their stage is way worse than mine was.
I understand.
And then 3 weeks later, you go for your second treatment, and you see them again, and they're actually only half the size they've been 3 weeks ago. And I always thought, if they can't get this cancer under control, is this then my way, slowly dying of this cancer? And that was my fear, that it comes back somewhere where I can't feel it or see it. I was lucky it was in a place where I could feel it myself. But what if it's in the lung? What if behind the kidneys? I can't reach there, I can't feel it, kind of thing. So I turned into a very depressed person, and things went through my mind like, does life make sense? Or what
am I doing here?
Yeah, what I'm doing. And if the doctor says you've got 6 months, what I'm going to do? And all these questions I had to face very early in my life. You're actually facing your death. Because if the doctor tells you you've got cancer, it's like your death sentence in your face and say, okay, here I am, deal with me. Yeah.
Yes.
So I started writing these letters, and then, as I said, 96, I was very depressed, and then I decided I'm have to resign. I just have to do something for myself to get to be me again, because cancer had me under control. My thoughts were just cancer. When I woke up in the morning, it was about cancer. And I loved being a teacher, and I enjoyed the kids, and the kids enjoyed me. And often after school, I thought, oh, today I was not fair, because they made a joke that the previous pre-cancer did, and I joked with them, and today I just brushed them off.
Fine.
And it was not fair, and they couldn't understand, and I couldn't deal with my colleagues anymore, with friends and family. So it was just too much, and I decided I just have to do something for myself. I have to heal myself. I have to get over this cancer. I have to come to rest with it. Otherwise, it's going to drive me insane. It's going to drive me more and more into depressions. And then I decided, because pre-cancer, I traveled a lot and I loved traveling. And I thought I just have to leave Namibia, go traveling again. And wherever I am, if somebody asks me there, how are you? Then it's how are you again? Because they don't know that I had cancer. In Namibia, because I was at the German school and it's a small community, everybody knew I had cancer. And they were very supportive and everything. And I was open from the beginning. So people knew they can talk to me about this. They could ask me, how are you? How is it going with the cancer thing? But then I reached a stage where you like to actually close that chapter, and you can't, because they remind me all the time in a good way, because they'd like to find out how are you. And I decide I have to close this chapter. I'm going to move and I'm going to leave. And I said to the school, I would love to come back, but I can't tell you if it's going to be a year or two or whenever. I'm just going to leave, and once I'm fine, I'm going to come back. And I returned after 2 years. So I backpacked for 2 years just to come to rest with the cancer. And when I came back and people asked me, then I said, it's fine, and I actually don't want to talk about this anymore. So I closed the chapter. Then when I come back, I just stopped the people. But before I left, colleagues often say to me, oh, the kids love you and you're doing a great job. You can't leave. You're 31. You've got a good position at the school. And it was all true, but it was not the right space for me at that time. So I made a summary out of these letters. It was like 6 A4 pages. And the one morning when we had a staff meeting, I said to the colleagues, I know a lot of you don't understand why I'm leaving, but you're welcome to read this. This is what's going inside me and what's bothering me. What keeps me up at night. And then a lot of them came back afterwards and said, obviously everybody read it. And then a lot of them came and say, well, if you read these 6 pages, you actually like to know everything. And then I used these 6 pages, and then it actually became my therapy. I decided I'm going to write everything down in a chronological way. How it happened, what happened, the good things, the nice things, the way the kids treat me, because they supported me big time. I included them in the book. And then the sad moments, the frustration, the thoughts the fights that I had with religion or you're looking for any straw to grab, to hold on to. So it became my therapy. So I've written all this down and I left it there. And then when I came back, started teaching again. I started then at the German private school, and there was a teacher from Germany. She started at the same time for the subject German. And she didn't stay far away from where I was living, and her computer was not working. So I went over to help her. And then she said to me, well, if I'd like to have a glass of wine, because she's a little bit down because a classmate of her in Germany just passed away of cancer. And then I told her that I had cancer as well. So we chatted, and I said to her, I've written about this. And then she said, well, one of the kids that she had in class in Berlin, the mother's got like a ghostwriter company kind of thing. So you can tell your story and they turn it into a book form. And it could be what you've written and they edit it, or you just record it and they write it, whatever you like to. And then I said to her, I don't know if somebody would like to read what I've written. It's just my therapy. I've just written down box of tissues, writing, deleting, writing, deleting. It was my therapy. And then she read it and said to me, send it there. She thinks it could be something. And they came back to me and said it's very authentic, and it costs quite a lot of money to get it edited to be a book version. And then I decided, instead of going on a holiday, I'm going to pay for this because it costs as much as a holiday to get it edited. I saw it as another trip, another journey kind of thing.
A journey in a sense.
And then I had a Word document that was perfect in book form, and that company asked me, what's my aim with that book? And I said to them, I like to make men aware, and I like to encourage cancer patients not to give up, because I made it. Because we often hear always about the people who died of cancer, but we don't hear about the survivors. I hear it often that people say, if they hear I had cancer, then they will say, my granny passed away, my uncle, my dad, whatever. But they will never say they survived, they survived. They all mention the people who died. That's why people got such a fear, because they think everybody's dying of cancer. But there's a lot of survivors and nobody talks about it. Often the survivors don't talk anymore because it was a dark chapter in their life and they don't want to talk about this anymore. They close that chapter, which is fine as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at the end of the day, the only thing that they changed is my story ended what I've written originally. It ended actually after 7 years when I went the last time for my checkup, where the doctor in Windhoek said to me, you don't have to come for a checkup. This cancer will not come back again. If you get cancer again, then it's like a first-time cancer again. So I walked out there, out of that cancer clinic. I was sitting in the car crying because I don't have to go back to this place ever again. So they took that part, and the book actually starts with that. I'm sitting in the car crying that I don't have to go back there. I'm fine. I'm healthy. And then it's a flashback. And they did it because I said I like to encourage cancer patients. So a cancer patient who reads my book, he or she reads on the first page. This guy made it.
Yeah.
What did he do? So it's actually to encourage them. And it's actually, they did it in a nice way. And that the German version was published in Germany 2004. And when I moved to the Cape in 2007, friends are English and Afrikaans speaking, they all say, well, get it translated. So instead of going on a holiday, I spent a translation again. And then the English version was published 2010.
Excellent. I'm going to find it. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and then I started a Facebook page actually with that. And I posted quotes out of my book and cheeky stuff, because that's why I called it Love Your Nuts, because men like jokes below the belt.
Yeah.
So I post things like, it's Fantastical Friday, whatever gets into your pants, make sure it's not testicle cancer, things like that. So I got quite a lot of followers. And then at the end of the day, corporates contacted me and say, well, we've got a Men's Health Day. Do you give talks? And I thought, well, I'm not embarrassed about what happened to me. I've been a teacher before. I don't mind standing in front of people talking. And that's how it's actually started.
Yeah. It's a lovely story.
So it was a hard lesson, a dark journey, but I think since I had the cancer, I allow my feelings. I cry if I like to cry, and I'm happy, and I show if I'm happy, and I show if I'm sad. And that's often what a lot of men can't do, because boys don't cry. You have to be strong. The man kind of thing, the manly thing, and that's why they can't actually express their feelings, because they haven't learned it to express. It was a hard journey to write these things down. I was crying like mad, and often I wrote a sentence and I thought, okay, it was not exactly like this, so I deleted it again and I rewrote it till it was in a way written that I felt, okay, that's how I felt, and then I left it there and I carried on. So it was working through a really emotional process. And I went to see a psychologist as well, because I couldn't cope with this anymore. Also, I've got an implant. A lot of guys don't go for the implant because they don't bother about this. And I thought, and the implant was actually a year later, only after the surgery, because today they do it differently. If you go for testicular cancer, then normally before the time, they ask you if it's testicular cancer, they remove the testicle. Do you like to have an implant immediately? Then you don't have to go for surgery again. In my case, it wasn't like this because, well, I think nobody in Namibia knew that you get an implant. Yeah. It's actually, so a year later, I went to my urologist and said to them, I like to have an implant. And he actually said to me, why? He was like, and I said, well, because if I stand in front of the mirror, it doesn't look normal. And I don't want to have a reminder every day that I had cancer. I like to close that chapter. And I know the one is going to be fake, but it looks normal. And then I said to him, I like to have it done during school holidays, that I'm not absent at school again, then, because it's small town world, and they will talk about, well, cancer's back kind of thing. So, and I resigned in December. So I said to them, I still have to be done this year, including it must be in my medical aid still. So obviously there was no testicle implant in South Africa or Namibia available, because it was 95, nobody had these things. And during that time,
We don't
doing
keep stock on the shelf of that.
Yeah. And during that time, there were 3 sizes, like small, medium, large, like you buy eggs. Today, it's completely different. Today, it looks like a string with different shapes, and you can choose that it fits. That's the closest fit to what you've got. So it advanced a lot. But way back for me, it was like buying eggs, small, medium, or large, whatever fits. And so he tried to source one, and he found one in the US, and it took ages to get it to Namibia. And I said to him, it's not on, because it must be during the school holidays. So at the end of the day, he found a company in Germany, and it was in time for the surgery to be done during the school holidays. And I always joke, because as you can hear, I've got a German accent, so my ancestors are German. I'm 3rd generation born in Namibia, and I always joke and say the only part of me that is really made in Germany is my implant. The rest is made in Namibia. So I take it in a humorous way, and it really works, because it opens up conversations. And then guys are always easier to, then they easily talk about these things, because it's not a taboo thing. The same at school, as you said, men don't talk. The same at school. I've got educational testicles. They're from silicone. I've got them from the UK. So they've got testicle cancer lumps on them. More than one. Normally it's only one, but they've got more on there just to show the different shapes, because they're not always the same shape. Yeah. So if I give a talk at the school, then I always say I need 3 ballsy guys on the stage, and obviously they all duck under their chairs, because nobody like to get onto the stage. And then the naughty ones, the now loud ones, they always get pushed by their mates. Come, you go, you go, you go. And then I always say to them, you don't have to drop your pants. We talk about testicles, but you don't have to drop your pants. So if they come onto the stage, I've got 3 sets, so they get all a set of these testicles, and then the audience obviously make comments, because they're standing there checking testicles. Yeah. And I always make it a game that they say, how many lumps do you feel? And very seldom they feel all 4, because some of them are really flat, and some are them like a jelly tot kind of shape, or bean shape kind of thing, but they could be flat as well. And then they all get a Lovely Nuts cap or something, and that often breaks the ice, because they see it's a serious topic, but I'm doing it in a humorous way. And then at the end of the session in the school, they ask questions. They really open to the kids. So
normalized it. I mean, we've gone full circle. Yeah. Normalized the conversation. Yeah. And I think it's crucial to awareness.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Torstan, I've taken up almost an hour of your time, as opposed
to time. If somebody else hears it and goes to the doctor in time, then it's worth the time.
It's been such a lovely chat, really, and I think we're going to pick this up again. Yeah. Because, as you know, it's an important one for all of us, regardless, boy, girl, whatever.
Yeah, true. Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for your support, because you supported me at the Nutcracker run.
Of course, but no problem, and you can count on us. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Have a wonderful weekend. Let's chat again soon. Okay. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.